everybody, and welcome to the first movie special of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's with me tonight?
Stefan JD.
Stuart Hughes.
Tiffany Albertin.
Returning again, my wife. All right, and Stuart, do you want to introduce the lovely movie we decided to go with for our first movie special?
Yes, we are. I was about to say we are playing. We are not playing. We are watching the 2006 French-Canadian movie, Silent Hill.
I did not know it was French-Canadian until I opened up the Wikipedia right before this recording.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to tell is that some of the background actors, so the extras that have speaking roles, have these very French-Canadian accents that I did not notice until I just watched it again for this episode. One of the nuns is like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." I'm like, "Aren't they supposed to be in Pennsylvania?" I'm sorry, I couldn't help you. Yeah, but it's a for those who don't know about Silent Hill, basically the plot of the movie is that Rose, Ryder Mitchell, takes her adopted daughter to the town of Silent Hill to find out what's causing all this emotional grief and sleepwalking that she's going through. And then shit hits the fan immediately.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had never watched who here has actually watched this movie before? For me, this was my first time ever watching. I knew about it back in 2006, but I don't like horror movies, so I didn't ever watch this.
I saw this in theaters.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I probably couldn't get anyone to go with me.
And actually, a fair amount of people saw this in theaters. Okay, so this technically it opened number one at the box office for I think April. April wasn't the craziest month in 2006 for movies, so that's not
what was it against?
It was against Benchwarmers and RVs and Scary Movie 4. So it wasn't
no wonder
the biggest month, but it still did pretty well. It was a financial succce.
And it's funny looking at the release dates on Wikipedia. It doesn't even give me USA; it just gives me Canada and France.
Yeah,
so I'm
I completely forgot about the whole French Canadian thing.
This was just a strange movie, though. I did like the main actress, Ryder Mitchell, right? That's who played Rose.
She has a history of being in kind of under under the radar weird horror movies.
Hey, she was in Phone Booth.
She was in Phone Booth. She was in The Crazies.
Isn't she a Man on Fire? Or
Yeah, she is. She's in Man on Fire. She's in Pitch Black.
Crazies is a good movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah. She's in a movie that I really like that no one else has ever heard of called PU-239, which was a HBO movie about yeah. I'll just let people look it up. Everyone should watch PU-239. It's really good.
It was just strange. Even right in the beginning, you get to see the family. You see Sean Bean. I'm like, oh well, he's dead. But that went a little...
Yeah, it's weird. Okay, so hold on. That's one thing. The first thing I want to talk about in this movie. Sean Bean plays Ryder Mitchell's husband, Christopher De Silva. He doesn't die in this movie.
Spoiler. Oh, I forgot.
He's in a horror movie and he doesn't die.
We should say spoilers for this movie and probably spoilers for Silent Hill. I forgot to say that.
Then you cover the game.
We already talked about the game though. So that was our first game that we talked about, right? And
the second game,
movie, which I don't know if that was intentional or if that was accidental.
This wasn't accidental. But no, I thought one thing I think is funny is because looking at the game you have Harry Mason, but here they go with a female, which actually did sound better because it would have been weird. I'm looking for a little girl, not my daughter. Just have you seen a little girl? There's demons. Little girl. I'm looking for I'm glad I didn't go that route because that wouldn't have worked in a movie like it sort of worked in the game.
It's pretty interesting, I think, because I was thinking about it while watching it again. I was like, this is a movie with 7 important characters and 5 of them are female. And it's a video game movie, and none of them are blatantly popping out of their shirts or anything.
There was nothing. Maybe a little later, but nothing felt overly sexualized, really.
No, it was
they
were all important actual characters. This movie,
not the main.
Silent Hill technically passes the Bechdel test.
Sybil Bennett, the one who's played by whatever
Officer Hot Pants. She's played by Laurie Holden, who also has a weird pattern regarding horror movies. Laurie Holden, who is also Angela in Walking Dead. She was also in The Mist and a couple of... I really like Laurie Holden, and she has a habit of whenever she's in anything, have you ever heard about Tom Cruise's acting habits where he's always running or Brad Pitt is always eating stuff? Laurie Holden is always yelling sensible things at crazy people. It's like she's always cast in a role where she yells logic at people who are clearly insane.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
I did like
funny enough though. Something about the fact that there's only like 2 male characters in this movie. It was actually mandated by the studio to include them in the script. That's why in the movie, when they're on their whole investigation or whatever, that actually ends up going nowhere.
I
wasn't
I
necessary.
really like knowing that now because that makes it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because it felt like they didn't belong.
You could have cut it. You could have cut it out.
Yeah. For those who don't know, like while all the Silent Hill stuff is going around, they keep cutting back to Sean Bean and Kim Coates, who's in this as a very sensible human being for some reason. It's like his most sensible role he's played.
Neither of them.
No, I mean I did
they're just always kind of like looking around, and then it doesn't matter, and they don't really pertain to the story in any way.
His character never ages as well because if you remember, he takes Alessa out of the fire when
30 years previously.
Yeah, and he looks exactly the same.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if there was some weird like time dilation stuff going on because they also talk about the crazy chick that came across Anna, who's like she keeps talking about like, oh, our elders built the city. Yeah, I was like, is that like a time dilation thing? Like, is time different in Silent Hill, like in the Dark Silent Hill, or is it like she just doesn't understand? I couldn't really tell.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that this movie kind of like tries to answer, and I wish it didn't. But we'll talk about that.
Well, even just in the beginning, how they get to Silent Hill, I mean, I don't really remember much of Silent Hill opening when we played the game, but just the fact that like she's driving and the cops following her, then they end up getting.
It's pretty similar, actually.
Why did the cops follow her?
Yeah,
she thought she kidnapped the kid. I think.
Well, the way that this happened actually plays out is actually really stupid because there's absolutely no reason why Sybil Bennett should be following her because she, like, what's she going to give her a ticket for? Like drawing on Alessa or whatever her name's drawing. Like, there's no reason. And then when she pulls her over, she just takes off for no reason.
I think she thought that like it seemed like the cop was gonna like arrest them and take the kid away because she was like, "Oh, this lady's crazy." But to be fair, the lady was crazy.
Yeah, I mean the whole like let's go to the city where you're having
similar. I mean, not the opening with the girls sleepwalking, but like how they get to Silent Hill is fairly similar to how they get to Silent Hill in the first game, where Harry Mason like crashes in town and wakes up and he's suddenly in Silent Hill and like his daughter's gone. This game takes a lot of story elements from like Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 and mashes them together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Silent Hill, the second Silent Hill movie, which we're not going to talk about,
not now,
is pretty much Silent Hill 3 just retold.
Because that's one thing they also changed the names of some of the characters, like the girl who's essentially God, what the hell is her name in
Alessa.
First Silent Hill?
Oh, in the first, I think she's also Alessa in the first Silent Hill, right?
Alessa was still the same, but Cheryl.
Yeah, Cheryl.
Yeah, she's Cheryl, and this she's Sharon.
Yeah, which I was
a
like,
weird change.
Is that the same girl? Essentially the same girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In here they just call her Sharon. And then her real name was Alessa because she was the girl that they're chasing after. Sharon is the good version of Alessa, who was tortured and mangled.
Yeah. There's 3 different Alessas in this movie. There's Sharon De Silva, who's like the manifestation of Alessa's good side. Then there's Alessa, who's like the actual girl, and then there's Dark Alessa, who's like kind of her. Like it goes back and forth of whether or not she's like the bad side of Alessa that's some manifestation, or if she's like the devil or something.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows up
accurate representation, I think.
Yeah, because she says that quote like, "I go by many names, not just one," or whatever.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, is this like the spirit of Silent Hill or something coming out? What is her? Because this game changed. Okay, I keep calling it a game. This movie, which I brought this up when we played Silent Hill. The movie changes the rules of Silent Hill, which I'm fine with. I'm 100% fine with them changing the rules. It's a very vague, ambiguous set of rules defining Silent Hill throughout all the games. So I'm fine with them changing that and just having the atmosphere. But this does it takes it a little strangely where like Silent Hill was created rather than always existing as this kind of like evil force or just being this like alternate universe. Like Silent Hill kind of is made by Alessa.
And another thing they changed too is that Silent Hill kind of revolves around the personality of whoever's going towards it, and they see their version, and other people see their other version. So, for instance, James Sutherland, the nurses look the way they look in Silent Hill 2 because they're a manifestation of his sexual frustrations. So, in the movie, them looking the same way as they do in Silent Hill 2, the game, doesn't really make sense other than aesthetically pleasing. We just want to see hot, weird nurses.
Well, you could say, like,
I wouldn't use the word hot.
People bring that argument up a lot, and I agree with it. It's dumb that they I on one hand, it's dumb that they keep having the nurses. They have the nurses in Pyramid Head in this, but they do that in the games too. The nurses in Pyramid Head show up in like every subsequent game because they just became a staple of the series. Right. Even though they were supposed to be this very specific manifestation of this very specific person's like mental state, but no, they just represent anything to anybody now.
Because
nurses were in the first
also,
nurses were in the first game too, so I was okay with that.
I don't think they were they?
They are. They're not like because it's PS1 graphics.
They're not like the same.
They're in it.
I think they're like
puppets of Alessa is what it is. So they look different, and so do the doctors.
Yeah, they look like more traditional nurses, or like old school nurses, rather than like busty, like boobs coming out of an evil face. I mean, yeah, but I really don't like going to the hospital. It's awful. Nurses creeping down the hallway.
You know,
I think I saw somewhere that they got like dancers to play the nurses. Because the nurses in the movie are actually really creepy and I think really well done. They've got that you're just like jolting movement. That's just super creepy.
Like ballet dancers.
That part was freaky. I mean, when she has the flashlight and they're all looking at her.
What's with the flashlight? I don't get it.
They tell her earlier.
Don't move.
They tell her earlier when they give her the flashlight, they're like, "You'll need this to see," but it also.
I
have that quote written down.
It attracts them for this one scene of the movie.
Yeah,
they'll be drawn to the light, but you won't be able to see without it. When they hand her the flashlight, they say that. Which, as Mike pointed out to me and Stefan, who didn't know, works in the fucking game too.
Yeah,
you turn off your flashlight and you were just like guessing where to go.
Another thing they take from the game too, and they use in the movie, they just show it once. I actually didn't follow if it does it through the whole movie, but when Sybil Bennett and Rose she's arresting Rose, their radios start to static.
Yes. Yeah, they do that through
awesome
monster.
Scene.
Yeah.
They do that through throughout the game, throughout the movie. Yeah, but she her radio gets like smashed at some point, so it stops. But yeah, I really like that as well.
They do it for a couple things. They do it with the radio multiple times. They do it with something else. I enjoyed that part. I'm like, it's a callback to the game. You know,
there's a point where Rhoda Mitchell's like running through the school, and or running through, it's the old school building, and a door doesn't open, and I was like, was that a reference? Was that door just locked and it's like part of filmmaking, or was it a reference to that door was locked?
That school was awesome. Like when she goes and she's looking for, I think she's trying to find something in the little office, and it had like a little like half. Babies. I was getting there. And it had like the half, like the little like the window thing, you know. In I'm like, that's just from the game. I remember going to that office. It looked a lot like the game, except way better.
Yeah, I mean, like, say what you will about this movie, the visuals are phenomenal. Like, it's like this is a very visually interesting movie. And the imagery is very, very reminiscent of Silent Hill. Like, they got the atmosphere down perfectly.
Oh, and since she had brought up a little bit ago, like right before she goes to that school, when she's in that random room when she first enters the dark world, she's getting chased by, I consider Knife Baby, because that's what they remind me of, the kids that you fight in the school.
Yeah.
They didn't have knife, but I got so happy. I was like, Knife Baby!
Those are almost the same exact model as that enemy in Silent Hill Homecoming. So I've always wondered if, like, when Homecoming came out, if they went back to the movie and they were like, we should reuse these assets. Like, we've got this, like, if they had concept art laying around, like, we like that. We like how that looks.
CGI.
Yeah, the CGI in this movie actually holds up all right.
The Knife Babies are not CGI, though.
No, they're not. And the I don't know what his name is. Well, his name is Colin in the movie, but I call him Barbed Wire Man. The Barbed Wire Man is also not CGI. That's really well done.
Yeah.
When they go, when she goes in the bathroom and it like it changes and the
when
the janitor in the toilet comes like crawling out.
Oh yeah, he's like a contortionist or something.
Yeah, that is a perfect Silent Hill moment. She opens the door into the bathroom stall and sees this, like, she's looking for Alessa, and like Alessa disappears in this bathroom. She opens this last stall and it's a guy like completely mangled by barbed wire, like tied up and contorted with it. And she has to like pull a key out of his mouth, which is very Silent Hill.
Yeah,
and then the world
reminded me of the game.
World changes and he comes alive and he like crawls out, but he can't use his feet, so he's like crawling on his waist, and it's just super creepy and so well done.
That was a creep part. And also, like, didn't they kind of insinuate, this not till way later, but they kind of insinuate that he had like hurt her or something?
He had, like he had raped
He molested her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got from it too, which I could also kind of fit with the whole like him being tied, in that position.
And that was part of the reason why they burned her too, is because they saw it. Like Alessa in the game is because she has superpowers. They want to bring forth a god or whatever.
They're trying to like control her for their own means in the games. In the movie, they're like, it's evil and she needs to be destroyed.
Because they're crazy religion cultists.
Yeah, they're witch hunters. Rather than being in the games, they're witches. In the movie, they're witch hunters.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the big
thing.
It kind of fit that whole. We'll get to religious cult later.
Colin, the molesting janitor, as I will now refer to him. Colin, the molesting janitor, is the same actor who played Pyramid Head in the movie.
Really?
Yeah. I did not know if that was meant to be like a. I didn't know if that was just like, hey, let's just reuse this actor because he's good at doing these like really physical motions, or if it was like, because it's Silent Hill, he's just going to keep reappearing.
I mean, the Pyramid Head was cool in this movie, like when he shoves his sword through things and all the bugs are everywhere. I mean, that was cool. I mean, Pyramid Head to me didn't feel necessary because when I see Pyramid Head, I think of Silent Hill 2 and everything with that character and what that brought, and that nothing to do with that movie, within this movie, other than this is iconic.
It's more of like a later Silent Hill thing where he becomes more of like the warden of Silent Hill. Okay. And that's how he feels in the movie. He's kind of like an assigned warden who's more or less leading the demons. Like he's the only one that has like some semblance of control or consciousness.
And he also gave me my favorite scene in the movie, which is
my god,
he grabs that little girl and he rips her clothes off, and then he rips her skin off and just tosses it like it's nothing.
That was
awesome. That's two very different reactions from me and Mike. That was awesome. That was gory.
Oh, like she said, I looked away. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that is. I think that's the moment where I realized I love this movie, or I love the like imagery of this movie. Like this movie does like really creepy, horrific things really well.
Yeah, I will give it that.
Yeah, it's like its biggest failing is every time people talk. Like if you were to watch this movie on mute, it would be perfect.
It'd be better.
Yeah.
I didn't mind the talking. I just didn't like everything with Sean Bean. Just like we were talking about earlier, it just felt so unnecessary, and it took away from the story I care about. I care about Rose running around in Silent Hill.
Where's my life?
Well, now that we know he's not, he wasn't meant to be in it. Like
this movie
needs a director's cut where they just remove Sean Bean and Kim Coates.
The only thing he played a part that continued with the plot of the movie is when he goes to the orphanage and you kind of, are filling in that story of how Sharon is Alessa and all that, and how it's the same girl from 1974.
Yeah, but they also cover that in Rada. Like you could tell that part was filmed at a different time, probably way later. Like they probably had to do that after the fact because they also have this insane like exposition dump right when the third act starts, and it's a very video game thing to do, where it's like I'm just gonna throw all the story at you now because this is where you've earned it. But in the movie, it's just like, all right, we're gonna take a 15-minute break and talk about everything that happened. I was like, I didn't need this. I didn't want this in this movie. A Silent Hill movie would do really well from removing any kind of exposition, and it's like things just happen, and you kind of have to like make some assumptions about what's going on.
I did like the part when she's in the school and I think it was the school. It was the school. She's being chased by the miners with a little canary.
They look like Chernobyl liquidators.
And all of a sudden, when the bird starts going crazy, like they're like, "Oh fuck!" and they just take off. Running.
That's something that's not in the games. I believe. I don't think the canaries are never in the games. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Well, it kind of fit the fact that I'm like, okay, it's a mining town. At first, I had thought maybe they were somebody that was like displaced from time or something, because they were miners. This is before you find out about the cult and all these people really living in.
They
there.
just show up out of nowhere.
There's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah. This has a lot of characters in it for a Silent Hill movie, but I think it works because it works in some aspects because like all the people in the church. I love whoever did the casting for like the church scene. They deserve all the fucking awards because they got like some of the weirdest looking people to just stand in the background and be these like it's people out of like a David Lynch movie or like a like Pink Flamingos or something. Like it's John Waters. That's who it is. It's like people out of like a John Waters movie. They're just so weird and creepy. Like the tall dude who's just behind Christabel at all times. Who's like an 8-foot tall dude with long straight black hair.
He was creepy as hell.
Yeah, he looks like young Lurch from the Addams Family.
And like with the bugs, like when you have the miners and they get eaten by the bugs and she's running through the school, that part was also like I really like those giant bugs for some reason.
Yeah, those were really creepy too. Where like one turns over and has a human face. I was really nerving.
And I did love when you start whenever they had the scene when you watch the world start to take the dark world start to take over. That was just awesome. Seeing everything start to fluctuate.
Like wallpaper.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that this movie had a lot of really bad studio interference because I don't want to give too much credit to the director and say like, oh, he's a genius or anything. But what I got was that he was trying to make this very like art house like movie with very little dialogue and very little people actually talking. It was just going to be really creepy atmosphere building up this really ambiguous story. And I can see that in there, and I really want that. And I would love for someone to take another stab at this movie and do it that way. I think it could turn out really well done, just really beautiful.
They could have done that too easily because if anyone picked it up, they actually use Akira Nakamura's or Yamaoka's music from the game in the movie.
Yeah, there's only one bit of music that isn't in the games.
Right.
That's Johnny Cash.
Yep.
I was wondering because when we started,
I was like, what?
We started the movie up. I was like, why does this sound familiar? And I couldn't remember if it was from Dexter or from Silent Hill. I've been watching a lot of Dexter lately. I was wondering. Yeah, I wrote that down too.
But they do a lot of the music is fantastic. I mean, Promise plays whenever Alessa starts showing up, and
that's great.
Just the atmospheric music when, like that first scene when they realize the town is cut off and they can't leave, and it's Sybil looking over the cliff. I love that. Used to be my desktop wallpaper for a long time because that's just such a great scene.
Well, that also felt like the game. You know, here you are in this town, and every road out of the town is gone.
Yeah.
Well, that also comes from another question. When Sean Bean and them are in the town, are like they never see them, even though it felt like they were right near them a couple points.
That's when it kind of changes the rules a lot, where it's like the town in the games, the town is just this place. Like it implies that there's like a lot of psychological stuff going on, but it's still a place that they are. Whereas in the movie, it's like they're in a totally different dimension or something.
Okay.
Right.
Or they're in a different reality.
Because that kind of confused me a couple times throughout this movie. Especially the Sean Bean stuff.
I do like the visuals of that. I really like Sean Bean being in the town, and like you'll notice watching it that everything still looks like really hazy. Like it felt like they took all the gray smoke effects and they just changed them to black in post-production and like filmed in daytime because it does have this like black smoke that's just hanging around very mildly everywhere. So the town looks like it's still on fire, and they have this like really red hue to it when they film in Sean Bean's like actual reality. I do like that visually as like a contrast to what's going on in the mental Silent Hill, but I don't know. It's like it's not good enough to keep that stuff in there.
Right. And another nice little callback they do that a lot of people, like especially people who went to the movie theater and don't know anything about Silent Hill, they still could have picked up on it when she's looking at the maps when she's trying to go through the town, being led by Alessa. It shows the street names, and some of them are named after famous writers like Bachman and I mean stuff like that. People could pick up on, but I just thought it was hilarious that they included that for no reason. It's there for like 2 seconds. Yeah.
I saw the hospital. I'm like, she's gonna follow the game, go to the hospital after the school.
That's a very good callback to the game as well, to the map, and it's like memorize where you need to go based on this map on the wall. You might not be able to take it with you. There's so much in this movie that could be so good, people. I mean, the girl they got to play Alessa, she does the Little Sisters in BioShock 2. They clearly like cared about who they were picking and like how they were doing this, because I mean, Alessa's got this perfectly creepy voice. The actress who plays Christabel, Alice Kree, is the Borg Queen in Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Okay, I should have caught that, but I did not.
It's just like there's so many good actors and people like show. I mean, the guy who plays Adam, who's like, to bring it back to the weirdos that are all standing behind Christabel. There's one dude. There's like a bunch of weirdos, and then there's one dude who's just bald. It's like he's just a totally normal dude, but he's bald, and it's like, is he supposed to be weird because he's bald, or is he like the most normal one, and so he's the lieutenant because he's the most normal? But that guy Adam, he was a voice actor for Dino Crisis.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's like they clearly went to the effort of getting people who kind of had some experience in horror and had some experience in doing games.
Right, and we should talking about them as well. Their whole point in the story is completely different from the video game. Mm-hmm. In the movie version, they're thinking that they survived the apocalypse.
Yes.
Okay, that's what got me confused too.
Yeah, and they are. Yeah, you do. And the weird part is that like it all kind of ties together back to like the Dark Alessa or whatever. Yeah. Like her whole plan doesn't really make sense because like for 20 years she's been like haunting them.
30 years.
For some reason, 30 years.
30 years she's been unable to kill everybody.
Yeah, and she'll like let them go out and scavenge for food and stuff and then go back to the church. Like it makes no sense whatsoever.
And somehow they know like when like the darkness, quote unquote, is going to come. And so they're all able to like scurry back to the church. And so you have to think like Pyramid Head. Also, Pyramid Head isn't like Alessa's. He's not like Alessa's minion. He like directly works for Dahlia for some reason.
Yeah, that also threw me off. And also the fact like Dahlia's not the villain. Like in the game, she's the villain. And I was like, okay. And that was all just strange too.
Yeah, in the movie, she exists as like a kind of foil for Rhoda Mitchell's character Rose. She's like the anti-mom. But yeah, like
let her daughter get burned alive.
Pyramid Head on Anna, and you're like, wait, hold on, what? I thought you weren't a witch. You just, what the fuck's going on? Do you have control or do you not? Because at the end of the movie, it's like she's left alive, and it's like, oh, Alessa didn't kill me. It's like, yeah, but like, don't you have powers? Like you use them. What's going on?
The same thing. It's like it feels like another part where someone intervened and said, nah, we're not going that idea. I know we already filmed it and put in the movie, but we're not doing that. Let's keep going.
They needed a cool scene with Pyramid. And I mean, to be fair, it was a cool scene, but it didn't make any sense.
I thought he was going to kill her too. That's what I was waiting for.
I think, I don't know, if Pyramid Head was going to be like specifically her thing, then I don't know, the movie should have ended with like a weird shot of like her staying in Silent Hill with Pyramid Heads.
I wanted Pyramid Head with some mannequins. I was bummed I didn't get that.
Yeah, there are a lot of mannequins in the movie,
which fits the whole Silent Hill. Which again doesn't come into Silent Hill. I think till 2, right, with all the mannequins.
I don't
think they were in the first one.
I don't think it's until 3.
I don't know.
I know Cheryl Mason deals with a bunch of mannequins. I don't think they're in 2. They might be, but I know they're definitely in 3 because when they do the remake of 3 as well. They are all over the place, and there's some really great visuals with them. The mannequins are always really creepy.
I think there might be 1 or 2 mannequins in 2.
They're definitely in 2. There's a scene with Pyramid Head where you see him outside of a closet doing things to mannequins.
That's that's the nurses.
That's the nurses? Oh, yeah, that's been a while.
Nurses. I mean, the nurses look very similar to the mannequins. They're both like human-shaped, sized white blobs.
Big-breasted.
Yeah. Now the mannequins, like when they start showing up in the later games, though, they're similar to the nurses, but I think they have a little bit more. I don't know. They've always unnerved me more than the nurses because the nurses are creepy, but the mannequins have that like clicking that they do. And there's one that turns into like a giant spider. It's really creepy.
I really need to play more of the series.
I think the mannequin spider shows up in the second Silent Hill movie.
Oh, I was like, that wasn't in this movie.
Yeah.
No, and I mean everything like when that first
This
scene.
is the bronchitis podcast, by the way. Stefan and I are both coughing.
I've been coughing, but thankfully not during this recording. But like when you first, I did like that scene when Sybil Bennett first sees the monsters and realizes there's something wrong with this place and starts to shoot whatever the hell that thing is and just shoots the hell out of it.
Oh yeah. She like calls out to it first and it's like, hey, we need help. Where are you? Because you just see it in the distance in the fog. It's a perfect Silent Hill moment of like some weird creatures in the fog and it looks vaguely human. So she's like, oh, it's somebody that can help us. And then it appears and it's not someone that can help them.
No.
Oh yeah. And what's really cool is after she kills it, she looks up at the hills and there's like all these other ones like just standing there staring down at them.
That
was a little creepy.
Talking about mentioned that in Homecoming. I think there's a sequence in Homecoming that's almost exactly like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Homecoming is an underrated Silent Hill game, I think. Has a lot of very good imagery. Like the movie.
That one's not talked about much.
No, sadly. Yeah, it's just I don't know. There's so much in this movie that could be awesome. Like the way it's filmed is really well done. They play around with like space a lot. There's a lot of wide shots which felt very reminiscent of the first game, where it's like it'll be a wide shot, but it'll be up from like the corner of a room with almost like a slight fisheye lens, so the room looks unnatural.
I mean, there's also a lot of scenes where they'll leave a place, like they'll leave the church and they'll go to the hotel or the hell they went to. Lots of scenes where they leave a place and they walk like maybe 10 seconds or 5 seconds and then they're somewhere else.
I blinked and missed it.
You keep missing all those.
There was a shot where they're in the hotel and they jump over to like the factory next door and Rhoda Mitchell starts hearing Alessa and chasing after her. And there's a shot in the movie where Rhoda Mitchell is like running along trying to find Alessa and she hears somebody up above and the camera pans up a stairwell, like a fire escape stairwell. And then Rhoda Mitchell runs back into frame of the stairwell. And it's a really, really well done shot. Like to the point that I was like, oh, that doesn't belong in this kind of movie. It's like a David Fincher shot or something.
I think that's around the time when she sees Alessa and then she's like, they lit me on fire. And then she, all of a sudden the fire goes on her arm. That was a creepy scene too.
Yeah. It's the kind of movie that like the imagery is so good. There's so much atmosphere and there's so much good like filmmaking. I mean, there's a point where Rhoda Mitchell's like running down a hallway and the camera like zooms past her to a door, and that's kind of how the transitions happen. It's like that's a really good transition. That I have to wonder how much of this movie was like, no, we need a lot of story in here. Like, I have to wonder if he gave this to the studio and there was like no dialogue. Because there's also a lot of weird ADR in this as well, where there's like so little dialogue. And then they were like, now you need to like explain this. And so, I like the parts where it does flashbacks in the old VHS style, which, I mean, it was in the first Silent Hill game. I have to wonder if that wasn't in there. And they said, no, you need this story. And so he's like, fine, I'll do the story, but I'll do it in the Silent Hill style.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, the movie's 2 hours long, and it feels like it was initially only supposed to be an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes.
That would have worked better. Because, I mean, for us, we watched it on Sony Crackle, which is not the way to watch this movie.
No.
I don't want to talk about it.
Sony Crackle is not good.
That's how I have to watch Tokyo Godfathers, because it never got an American release.
Sony Crackle is where movies go to die.
Okay, well, for those that haven't used Sony Crackle,
it's like vegetable life support, just barely holding on.
One, it gives you ads, and the ads, I'm like, okay, I'll handle an ad, but for some reason, a couple of the ads, it would play 2 seconds, wait 3 seconds, play 2 seconds of the ad, wait 3 more seconds. Then I was like, oh god, this is
the Minnesota Twins ad overloaded it.
And you'll get like
stop, and that was
you get like 30 ads in a movie too. It's such a
it was too much. Like we watched this movie, we watched half of it one night, and the second night watched the other hour. So for us, it was a little bit broken up too, which makes it a little different of experience. Again, you should watch this movie should be watched in one sitting.
It's probably like the same amount of commercials you'd have to deal with watching a movie on TV, but they're broken up into like 30-second bits, and so they're just constantly hitting you.
It kind of. I'm used to watching everything on Netflix and Netflix mainly, and there's no commercials, so I didn't like it. But
every now and then my cookies on like Chrome will reset, and I'll get on YouTube and I won't be logged in, and I will get angry. I'll be mad. Like an ad will show up. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm paying for no ads. This is bullshit.
They're punishing you.
The amount of anger I feel when I see a commercial nowadays when I'm not watching TV, it's ridiculous. I understand that it's ridiculous. But I'm like, an ad will show up. I'm like, this is bullshit. This is fucked up. Like I act like it's some sort of crime against my rights. Just like I pay for no ads.
Oh, what was that? So I mean, did you get the part where she gets to the church and then she meets up with everyone? They take her to that last building to go meet Alessa or whatever the hell she's gonna go do there. The thing, the flashlight. Was that the hotel or what? Or was that what building was that?
Yeah,
that was it's the basement of the hotel that they're sending it to.
Which has one of the stupidest parts in it because Sybil basically commits suicide in that scene. I have no idea why she didn't get in the elevator with Rose.
Yeah, they just needed a way for Laurie Holden to die.
Well, she did. Just not then.
Not then. I thought they were gonna beat her to
death.
They
did close enough. I mean, they just start beating her.
I feel like her face wasn't beat up enough.
No.
Yeah,
a lot of pipes they hit her with.
No.
No, they just broke her ribs and stuff. And they're beating her with giant lead pipes and like I think one of them has her like police baton and like a flashlight, and it's just like, oh god, she's dead. She's 100% dead. And then she shows up later, and she's like, oh, she's just.
And then she shows up. Oh, okay.
I did like that scene though when that woman picks up the locket and sees the daughter's face, and she's like, "You are the witch."
Her face changes 100%. Like it pulls a 180 where she's like, "Oh, and here's your locket, witch."
Much as I hated her in this movie, I did not. But that was cool.
Played it well, though.
Yeah.
Alice Cree's a good actress.
Yeah.
She was already on edge by those Sybil hot pants, and that just pushed her over.
Watch First Contact as a board queen. She's great.
Yeah, I mean, Sybil was all right in this movie. There were some cool parts with her, and she was more like, felt like the character actually knew what the hell was going on. I mean, in a way, at least was reacting correctly to what was happening, I should say. That's what I want to say.
At first, and then halfway through the movie, they completely changed roles where Sybil is like freaking out, and Rose, who's been freaking out the entire movie, is suddenly like, don't worry, everything's fine. Just, we'll do this, and everyone remain calm, and we're all good. Like Sybil goes from being this like badass cop with this awesome backstory to like oh god, what's gonna happen to us?
Oh, like that useless backstory that like, oh, so many years ago someone dropped a kid down a mine shaft. We're not gonna talk about that. Nothing to do with this movie. But so many years ago.
Like, and she saved him.
It's meant to act as like, oh, like this character cares about children, and so like that's why she's important to Rose right now. But it's like, yeah, she's also a cop. You can kind of just assume that she's like. She's also a cop and a human being. You can kind of just assume she'll care about a child.
Do not assume anything.
Do not assume this small town cop gives a shit about small children lost in town. It's like she needs some reason to care about this small child, and I can only imagine somebody going like,
doesn't mean she cares about children.
It's just. Well, I'm imagining that exact conversation happening where they're like, some exec was like, oh, she needs a reason to care about this kid. And everyone's like, well, she's a human being. And they're like, no, make it because she's a female cop. And it's like, okay.
We're not human beings. We don't understand.
As a male non-cop, if I saw a small girl lost in a town, I'd be like, go fuck yourself, lady. You're on your own, kid.
I did, and then as you get as you go from the bottom of the hotel, and after the part with the nurses that we already talked about, I did like it when she gets to the room and you see Alessa, and then you see the nurse, which is essentially the nurse from the first game.
Yeah,
that part was cool.
That's the part I was talking about with the weird ADR. Like that scene looks really good, and also they do a really subtle thing with Rose's clothing where it changes. Like she gets covered in blood earlier, and then at that point her clothing is just completely red. Like she's changed clothing entirely to like clean red clothing. And I don't know if I assume that was like a very intentional thing. Like part of it was like, is this just we don't have the money to bloody up these clothes, so we're just going to buy red clothes.
See, I was wondering when she got that bloody that her entire outfit turned red.
Yeah. I think it's like she's meant to her clothing changes to red because it's meant to be this like imagery related to Alessa, and she's kind of like trying to help Dark Alessa. Which works. It's one of those things that would be really good if this was a more subtle movie.
I feel like that's when things start taking a different turn. Like things are even less real than they were before. Like you see the nurse has no eyes because it does that pan.
Well, they hide it for like 5 minutes. You're like, we get it. Her face is fucked up.
Yeah, I kind of thought. I figured there'd be no face. Like just nothing there.
No face from Studio Ghibli. That'd be weird. And not Princess Mononoke. What fucking movie is that?
And then they infect her.
Spirit Away.
Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Good movie. Then they infect her with like Alessa's blood or something or whatever the hell they did.
Alessa absorbs into her so that she can sneak into the church later.
Yeah, which I had also thought and that's when the movie really like, because it's kind of gory, but that's when you get to the church scene, when she comes back, she confronts them. They burn Lori at the stake,
which is a very good scene and how uncomfortable it is.
It was very uncomfortable. Like because it looked like she was even that close to the fire, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, her face is popping. I'm like, oh
yeah, I know that's realistic though. She's just being held like
that close to the fire.
Yeah. She's above a giant raging fire though, so she's just getting roasted. Like it's really uncomfortable. She's not directly being burned. It's just like the radiating heat of the fire. I always thought that scene was really uncomfortable.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're gonna put the girl.
Yeah, I was just about to say I'll give this movie 10 points because it actually shows Alessa getting burned, and that was very unsettling as well.
Yeah, this movie has so much good imagery. You could tell they wanted to make this like subtle movie with no fucking story. That would have been really awesome. It would have just been like nothing, but it would have been like a David Lynch film, and they wouldn't let him do it.
It wasn't too I mean, it was a little unsettling during the beginning, but it's really that second half when it gets.
No, because the first half is just building atmosphere, and then the second, like the third act of the movie is when shit goes bonkers, and then like Alessa has like barbed wire. She's like a barbed wire bender.
Like, what is that?
That whole part, like, where'd she even come from?
She comes out of Rose. Because she absorbs into Rose, because Rose can go into the church, but she can't. So she hides herself.
Version of herself?
Yeah, it's 30 years later. So she's 37 after she's been burned.
Still alive?
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah. She's kept herself alive in the bottom of the hotel. It's implied like the nurse is taking care of her. And
it actually shows her like more developed as a woman too.
Yeah.
Like she's not like a little girl. Yeah.
But it doesn't show her directly, which I like. It kind of just like flash it. You get like little glimpses of her through the curtains, where she's like clearly an adult woman that's just super fucked up.
Because was it essentially the fire happened the fire that cursed the town is essentially when they burned her alive, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is what I mentioned earlier, where Silent Hill was created rather than having this ambiguous existence. This movie answers that question for some reason by saying they burned Alessa as a child and they fucked it up, and like she kind of had this split. It turns out she was a witch. She had this like split where her dark half like caused this building to start burning, and this whole town caught on fire as a result. And she was or rather like this, like they fucked up burning her. They couldn't kill her, and so she goes to the hospital, and that's when she encounters like Dark Alessa, and kind of it's like Dark Alessa's again kind of a devil, kind of this evil manifestation of something. Cthulhu.
The other part I didn't understand were all like the survivors in the church. Were they all trapped in like a different dimension then? Because like you think that the cop who went to the town that they would see these people, because there was like had to be like 50 people running around the town.
They are caught in like purgatory essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. She traps them there.
Yeah. The idea is that like when she like met with Dark Alessa and kind of formed some pact or whatever, that everybody in the town was, or I should say most people in the town were kind of transported into this like purgatory world where they weren't really alive. They thought they were alive, but they weren't really alive. They weren't dead. They were just in this area where Alessa could torture them.
Well, that's why they don't age.
Yeah, that's why they don't age, and that's why like there's this kind of like weird idea of time where they talk about like our elders, and Christabel's been around the whole time, but she acts like it's been like 100 years.
So that part. Those parts were confusing me. And I was like, "What the hell is happening?"
Yeah, that's the part that doesn't make any sense because Alessa she has them all trapped in purgatory to punish them, but she can't truly punish them because she can't get into the church. So it's like their religion is some kind of power against her.
That's the other thing. I mean, like I hate they did a good job with the cultists and how they're like this whole idea that
they all are.
Yeah, and how and they're worshiping and being like, oh, is this gonna save us? And you're a sinner, you should be like murdered in terrible ways and all that type of bullshit. I mean that was interesting though. Like it definitely was interesting. I mean the Salem witch trials type idea.
It would have been way more interesting if they didn't have all the dialogue and it was just a lot of like imagery of like, oh, they're in this. I'm gonna say imagery and lack of dialogue about 100 times in this review. But
you have
like old-fashioned silent movie.
Yeah, if it was like a silent movie where they're just like you just see the church and you see that like Alessa can't get it. Like there'd be a great scene of like Pyramid Head's like knocking on the door and he can't get in, rather than just kind of giving up. Because that's the sense that he's just like he throws the skin at the church and you're like, oh, that's Pyramid Head just being a dick. Rather than like, oh, that's him saying like, fuck you, I can't get into your church, but here's a gift. Here's a gift of skin.
Here's your dead daughter.
Yeah. They need like to have a scene of like Alessa staring at the church or like trying to get in and she couldn't get like step on the first steps, or there's something to say like to just solidify that idea. Because it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like if they just had something like that, it would have made more sense. But as it stands, it's like like she's got this in this area, she's got them in this alternate world, but she doesn't control every aspect of her own alternate world.
Which was strange.
Maybe their faith does have some kind of like magic to it. I don't know.
Yeah, that part kind of got me confused too. And then like the whole scene when after she finally gets in the church and she gets all the barbed wire and she just, I mean, that's when the movie really.
When the movie turns into Hellraiser.
Yeah. I've never seen Hellraiser, by the way.
Oh man.
But
it's good.
It's pretty good.
Good movie.
They also do a lot with barbed wire and Hellraiser.
Yes, they do.
I mean, they rip those people apart.
It's just, it goes like off the rails in the best way. Where it's wholesale murder, just like fuck all you assholes.
I mean, especially
this is my revenge story, bitch.
Especially the lead cultist woman that had been the one that had sentenced her to death.
Oh God,
earlier.
yeah.
They went full Evil Dead on her.
Oh God, yeah. She oh God, she gets the worst kind of death.
If anyone doesn't recall, Evil Dead, there's a part with trees and a branch. This one doesn't use trees and a branch. It uses barbed wire.
This makes the tree preferable.
Yeah.
The tree, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just brutal. And Tiffany's like, where did that go? And she's like, oh.
I was like, oh,
imagine that scene in a movie without dialogue. Where that's just like, you're just watching all this stuff happen, and then that's how the fucking movie ends. And you're like, what the fuck?
Then it just shoots up her mouth. So it goes all the way through her body, out her mouth. And they're like, split her in half. I'm like, oh.
God. It's pouring out of her. Like it looks like the thing. It looks like the thing's like spawning out of a body. It's just super creepy.
Brutal.
Oh man, it's so creepy. It's so unnerving.
Like there should have been more blood though.
Probably yeah. Well, there's just like red mist everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that part like the end of the set where the chick walks out and you can't even see her. She's just nothing but blood. It would be kind of like a fun little comedy shot of Rose and Alessa or Sharon walking out of town, just both completely soaked.
That'd have been more accurate than what I mean. They look mostly. I mean, Rose was kind of covered, but I think Alessa was mostly, or Sharon was mostly.
I feel like
unscathed.
it was just her clothing. It wasn't like
yeah. Well, Rose was just wearing like they legitimately changed her clothing to red clothing.
Strange.
Like they got rid of the blood and they just made her wear red clothing.
But I feel like that
was just a thing.
They didn't have enough money for fake blood, or
I think that's when she really starts. Like she's at that part of the movie. I feel like she's no longer in the world anymore at all.
Well, the implication is that like that's when she's kind of given over to like Alessa's power.
Yeah, and she's dead too.
She's now she's now like a tool of Alessa rather than a person.
Yeah, I mean, like after you have that tragic scene or a brutal scene, I should say, and then they leave. Then they get in the car. The car starts. They drive to where the bridge is no longer there, and then they cross the bridge. All of a sudden reappears, which made sense. It fits Silent Hill. She drives home. Sean Bean's character had finished his little nothing quest, and he's at home now.
And they were there, but they weren't there.
Yeah, that part completely confused me.
So are they like dead?
They should have just cut that part out of the movie.
Yeah,
entirely. It's like the movie should just end with them leaving town.
I couldn't tell if it was like a time lapse thing, like where he was there at a different time.
That's what I thought, but then he goes and he sees the doors open and nobody's there and there's no car, and that's when I'm like, wait a second. And plus, when you see her in the house, everything looks muted. Like the colors are a little duller than
Silent Hill.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, I think what happens is
perfect ending would be her driving to the town because she calls him when she's on her way back, and the phone's all fucked up. That should have been the ending where it's like she's still in Silent Hill. If you want to have her leave, like do that. But yeah, her like showing up in the house and him looking for her, and it's like, yeah, they're in like a different reality. She's still in Silent Hill, even though she's left the town somehow. It's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand it. I was hoping maybe you did.
I just thought they were dead, and it was like their ghosts.
Yeah.
I think it's just she's still stuck in the purgatory world of Silent Hill. But in the world of Silent Hill, you're not supposed to be able to leave the town. So it's I don't really know what's going on there. Like, Alessa's allowed her to leave, but she's still stuck in Alessa's world. And Alessa's with her. So I guess it's like, this is going to be my complete Hail Mary here to figure this out. But I think it's like Alessa, who is now Sharon. Like, Sharon is now embodying both Alessa, good Alessa, and bad Alessa. She's become like the ultimate Alessa being. She's just like existing in this world with Rose as a kind of surrogate mother.
Her final form.
Yeah, her final form. She's don't do it, Stuart. Don't make another Dragon Ball reference. You can go one episode without doing it.
We haven't yet. Not lately, at least, since I've been keeping track.
I thought it wasn't an episode unless it happened.
That seems to be how it works here.
When she becomes Alessa Zekai.
I do have one question I want to read, though, because I did ask some people for questions. Most people, like, it was very 50-50 with this movie. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people hated it.
Much like the
Revelations seems to be very negative, everything around. Even
Revelations has a 7% Rotten Tomatoes score.
That's bad.
There are Uwe Boll movies that have higher scores than that.
Oh, and this is one from... The one question I do want to read is from Angel Johnson. Why do you think they had to fuck the story so hard?
I think studio interference.
Yeah. Especially after what Stefan said early on, that makes perfect sense. Like, everything was... If you took out all the Sean Bean parts, you could really have cut it down, put any actor in it. It didn't need to be, a big actor like they had with Sean Bean.
I think leave Sean Bean, though, because the fact that he doesn't die is really funny.
That was, but...
He's in a horror movie where he doesn't die. The one movie where he stays alive.
He doesn't do anything in this movie. He goes to the town.
I just kept saying Game of Thrones. That's all I saw.
Yeah.
He walks around. He says a few things. He gets in trouble. Gets arrested.
Would it be a better movie if he was just his character from Game of Thrones walking around like Alessa's coming?
Alessa's coming.
That could almost work.
He
opens his mouth and it's just the air horn.
I have seen the sequel and he
don't want to
more in there, but it's really I think he does die in the sequel.
I don't think he does. I think Malcolm McDowell is in the sequel and he dies. I think.
I don't.
It's been a long time.
Is so terrible.
Or no, does he get killed right at the beginning? Because the second one, he changes his name right from Christopher De Silva to Harry Mason. And you're like, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
Now you maybe want to watch the second movie.
It's so bad. It's like. It's all the terrible dialogue of the first movie and none of the interesting imagery. Like, none of the good camera work. It's all just really... There's, like, maybe 2 good shots. And it's just boring and bad and dumb.
I feel like, someone who hadn't played the game before, if you came into this movie, like, that's one... I think it's an interesting movie for the most part. It's not my style of movie, because I don't watch these type of things normally. I felt it was interesting for the most part. Like you said before, the imagery was very cool. They did a good job with the sound, and the way that the movie made you feel for the most part. And I was mostly creeped out for the majority of this movie.
There's a good job of that movie in there. There's a really good movie in there, and the director of this movie, he was actually trying to get the rights to make it for 5 years, I think. Oh, wow. And eventually I read something like he eventually sent in an interview he did. He videoed himself doing an interview, a fake interview, and sent it to Konami to explain why that he should get the rights to make this movie. And they were really impressed. So they're like, screw it, yeah, here we go.
There you go.
That's Konami.
He had this great I think the screenwriter, his dad was a miner. It had this really, really good crew that all really cared about what they were doing, but something happened along the lines. And it's just people got involved and changed things, and it turned out to be really shitty.
Yeah. I do want to say one more quick thing about the sequel, though, that I think is very funny. Sean Bean's in it, and so is Kit Harington.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
He's the weird boboyfriend character.
And he uses his real accent.
Yeah.
Wait, what accent does he have? No?
I don't know.
Oh.
What about him?
What accent does he have?
He's British or something.
He has a London accent.
Talking
London.
Yeah, he has a London accent, which is like, you should just look it up. It's really funny.
Are we gonna talk about the real Silent Hill?
Sure.
Australia, which I always wanted to visit.
Me too. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go to Centralia.
You don't live that far from it, though.
No, I don't. It's like I've checked before. It's like 4 hours away from me.
Ooh. And then we can do an episode on that.
Yeah, let's just go.
If we make it back,
we'll go. I don't know if you're allowed in anymore. I think you were like 10 years ago, but I want to say they've started like sectioning it off because the town is actually in danger of collapsing in itself now.
Wow.
I mean, let's still go. I mean, if I'm gonna dying in Centralia, Pennsylvania, would be an awesome way to go. How great would it be? Of course, it's not. It's pretty terrible to die.
What happened? How did he die? He died in Silent Hill.
He died in Silent Hill. How awesome would that be? Oh,
would that be on your gravestone? He died in Silent Hill.
Yeah, it would just be some quote from the game or something. Or like, no, it'd be a series of like numbers, and the numbers would be coordinates to Centralia, and everyone would be like, "What the fuck does this mean?" It'd be the coordinates of Centralia, Pennsylvania, and then underneath it would just say like "Save Alessa."
All right. I think we should. Any final thoughts you guys want to say on the movie before we do our? Are we gonna do pawn or pass?
I just want to mention the imagery again because it's so good. If I could just say imagery 30 more times in this review.
Okay, I'm gonna. All right, we normally always call it shelf or box on the regular, but for this one, we're gonna, with it being movies, we're gonna call it. Are you gonna pawn it off? Or are you gonna pass it on to someone else to watch?
Changing it up a little bit.
Yeah. Tiffany, why don't you go first?
I'll pass it on or keep it. I mean, I really liked it. I'd never seen it before. It'll go on my collection.
Cool.
Mike is going to pawn it. I want to tell you right now. Yeah. Mike is going to pawn it.
Yeah, I got
you can pawn one.
Well, it wasn't a bad movie, but it's not my kind of movie. I don't have any desire to ever watch this movie again. I enjoyed parts of it, and I enjoyed watching it. No,
I don't like any kind of horror, really, right?
But I mean, this is the guy who the only horror movie I watched when I was a kid was Stephen King's It, and I was terrified of everything else. Like I haven't even seen a Child's Play movie. I've never really seen anything but Jason X. I can't remember that.
Now's the time they were making Child's Play.
I mean, yeah.
Child's Play was never that scary. It's more just goofy and
weird.
Like, it's kind of like the later Friday the 13th movies where it's like schlocky and funny.
No, because they had the My Buddies out right at that time. Do you remember the My Buddies? You're all too young. I'm old. I'm sorry.
Well, Stefan's close to our age, or my age.
Stuart. Yeah, we were born the same year.
Oh yeah, the My Buddy doll. That's the one Chucky's based off. Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister.
All right, Stefan, how about you?
Okay, the way I'm going to describe this movie.
Sigh.
All right, the way I'm going to describe this movie to everyone, I'm going to use a little analogy. When you go to the gas station, you get a scratcher, and let's say Silent Hill is the scratcher. You paid $2 to get it. You start scratching it. You got hope in you that there's something good underneath as you scratch the surface, and you keep scratching to find something good. And at the end of it, you find out that you only just won your $2 back. That is Silent Hill.
That's a pretty good analogy.
And then with that $2, you go back in the gas station, buy another scratcher because Silent Hill 2, the sequel, Silent Hill Revelations, and then you lose on that scratcher.
That's like you go back in to buy a scratcher and you get mugged and someone spits in your face.
Yeah.
That's how
somebody steals it.
Somebody steals it. So it turns out it's like $1 million winner, but somebody steals it and then gets hit by a bus and you can't find it. You're like, well, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's the way I would put this movie, and I would pawn it, burn it, destroy it.
That was funny. We were talking about doing this. You were like, oh. You were like, oh, like very unhappy. Like, do we have to do this? Did they have to do this movie?
It has some cool. It has like maybe one or two cool moments that I love, but that's not enough to win me over for this movie.
I think
I
most
don't know.
of the movies that we're gonna do are not gonna win you over because I know I have other movies I want to do and you're not excited about either.
Like there are very few great video game movies.
Yeah,
and if
I think Silent Hill's one of the better ones, though.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the. It's definitely one of the more competent ones. I don't know if I'd say it's better.
But I think
it's in the middle.
Put a lot of thought into it. Like they put a lot of thought into it being like the video game.
I mean, it's better than like Dead or Alive, which is like softcore porn. It's certainly better than Tekken. Did you guys know they made a Tekken movie? It has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's yeah.
It was reviewed by like 4 people, and that's it.
Tekken's a fighting game.
Oh.
Yeah,
I know of it. I've never seen it. I know
there's
Tekken
a
a lot.
Movie of it.
We might have to track that down.
Poorly.
And this is a fighting series that has a big bear as one of the characters. I don't know if it's in the movie. I've never seen the movie.
I think Bandai Namco disowned it. They were like, "Yeah, we're not related to this movie anymore."
All right, Stuart, how about you for honor key, whatever we're gonna call this?
I'm gonna keep it because I do like aspects of this movie. There is a good movie in Silent Hill. You have to watch this movie with like a certain eye and say like you have to be imagining what the vision was supposed to be. I think. What do you think of the imagery? Yeah, I really like the imagery. I didn't like the dialogue.
Are you sure?
But just like the like spacing of certain shots and just how everything was filmed and like the more subtle elements of it, the building of the atmosphere, that's all really, really good. And it's so disappointing because it's like if it was just bad, it'd be fine. If it was just a terrible bad movie, I'd be like, okay, yeah, it's not gonna haunt me. But because there's parts of it that are so good, it's just a bigger disappointment.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like there are parts of it I want to love what this movie was supposed to be, and I'm gonna have to hold on to it for that because you know,
close your eyes whenever Sean Bean comes on the screen and wait till he goes away, and might
enjoy the movie more. To build off of Stefan's analogy, it's like being really, really hungry and getting like just a cheesy, greasy McDonald's hamburger, and then somebody spills some paint on it. You're like, well, I haven't eaten in like 3 days, and I'm really hungry, and I'm still gonna do it. I'm not gonna enjoy it.
Okay.
It's like being so like walking through the desert and somebody hands you an ice cream sandwich, and it's just like, oh, this is great, and it's like, yeah, but it's full of maggots too, and you're like, oh, well, it's the only thing I have.
Protein.
It's protein.
It's some very odd analog. I like Stefan analog. I cannot say that word.
Analog.
Yes.
Analog works. His analog. That's technically correct. You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
All right. I think we should wrap this one up.
No,
never mind. One more thing Tiffany wants to say.
I need to give a shout out to someone from our Twin Cities groups because she helped me hash through the difference between the games. So I understood what y'all were saying.
Nice.
Wait, you have to say the name for me.
What's y'all's Twin City?
Minnesota Twin Cities Geeks is called the group.
I'm thinking of Sister City, not Twin Cities. Shit.
I'm probably gonna butcher her name, but I think it's Ainsley or Ansley.
Yeah,
I have no idea butchered it.
Ainsley, thank you for helping me out, and I'm hoping that she will come on if you guys do Revelations.
We probably will.
Stefan's like, I might be sick that day.
Yeah, neither of us will want to, but I mean,
I've never seen Revelation. I mean, it also depends. Like, if anyone's listening to this, if you enjoyed this movie, enjoyed listening to us talk about this movie,
yeah,
let us know and keep downloading. Get other people download it, and if it does good, we're definitely going to do more of these. If you guys are enjoying,
super happy to talk about more video game movies. So
yeah,
there's a few I really want to talk about.
I mean, like Max Payne exists. That's out there.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
The first Resident Evil I consider to be like
good
one
movie.
of the best. Yeah, that's one of the best video game movies.
That's the only one I like. The first one.
They're all good.
I like.
Wait, I say out loud.
You forced me to watch them.
I will defend to the death the first Hitman. The first Hitman movie is great. It's so good.
With Peter Oliphant?
Timothy Oliphant?
Timothy Oliphant, sorry.
Yeah, he's great. I love him.
Fantastic. Yeah.
He's really awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, so if you guys like this, we are thinking about doing more. We might do a poll in some of the groups and then see what you guys think would like you like to watch next when we suffer with.
Please pick Hitman or Street Fighter or Super Mario Brothers.
Street Fighter is coming definitely later. I think it's going to be July. We're going to do, I guess we'll say it on here. We're going to do a special with Trash Talk with that.
Okay, sweet.
We're going to do Street Fighter the movie and Street Fighter the movie the game and talk about all that.
Wait, what?
Nice.
Yeah. But for people listening, we can't say this enough. These episodes, bonus episodes, really depend on how well they do if we're going to keep doing them. So,
and we want to keep doing them.
Yeah.
These are like pretty easy to make, and they're really fun to talk about, and we just enjoy doing them. So please like us.
And we'll get better at it. Yeah. Okay. Give us more time. We're not used to talking about movies. We're used to games, and I'm
used to just yelling about movies at people. like
if we ever watch Roadside Picnic, me and Stefan could just have a beer, mute the microphone, and Stuart could just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah. That'll be the Resident Evil episode, basically. Resident Evil episode will be you guys are just quietly muting your mics and walking away. I'm just like, and Marilyn Manson worked on it, and he wasn't even in soundtracking at that point.
All right. Well, I just want to thank everyone for listening. Please, if you guys, you guys anything you guys want to plug first? Okay.
Mm-mm.
As we said before, I
am working this week though because I am finally off of school. So this week will be a lot of trying to get a bunch of personal work done. So hopefully I'll have something to plug soon.
Okay. I want to thank everyone for listening. And again, our awesome opening and outro you'll be listening to came courtesy of Bulby, Mike Stoney. The song is with the Cool Kid Squad from the EP Bite the Bullet. I really should write this down one day. You should take a listen to his YouTube channel. I think I would.
No, what? 23, 4? What are we?
Something like this is bonus. This doesn't count. Okay.
Oh, it don't count. Okay,
please follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram.
We're professionals.
Sure we are. Not yet. Getting there. Not yet. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening. You guys have a wonderful night.
Go watch Silent Hill.
Bye.
And if you're an asshole, go watch Silent Hill Revelation.